The composition of Peter Bruegel's wedding banquet is based on diagonal lines that recede toward a vanishing point and differentiate 3 layers of spatial depth. The figures of the man pouring wine and the child on the floor are in the foreground layer. The 2 servers are located on a secondary level, and the participants in the banquet are on a 3rd level. The bagpipe players are placed in an intermediate plane. The painting depicts a wedding banquet prepared in a peasant setting and portrays humble, non-idealized human beings. Although based on life in Flanders during the 16th century, the work recalls biblical events, especially the marriage at Cana at which Jesus turned water into wine. The precise placement of numerous minor figures within the space of the painting facilitates the reading of the image. The rendering of 3-dimensional perspective makes clear the hierarchical arrangement of the figures and carries the viewer's eye slowly through the space toward the small figure of the bride, who is seated in front of the black hanging on the wall. But at first glance, our attention focuses on interconnected groups or episodes of equal importance. This arrangement is a distinctly advanced and realistic pictorial concept. The influence of Italian Renaissance art is recognizable in the way that Bruegel constructs his figures with simple, clearly outlined shapes. The geometric monumentality of Bruegel's figures may derive from the paintings of Giotto, Piero della Francesca, and Masaccio. The figure of the man who is pouring the wine in the foreground is drawn from a long and learned tradition, originally inspired by the zodiac sign of Aquarius, whereas we see the more authentic vein of realistic Flemish art in the strongly expressive, somewhat stunned faces of the peasants and the bagpipe player. Numerous details place the scene in a precise social and cultural milieu. Observe, for example, the typical peasant foods of bowls of stew and oatcakes, the spoon in the server's hat — guests usually brought silverware from home — the peacock feather on the cap of the boy on the floor, the small wedding tiara hanging above the bride, and finally, the bagpipe players, a customary presence at wedding banquets. The man pouring wine into jars is, according to some critics, the groom. He had to do the honors of the house by serving the guests at the table. The wedding banquet takes place in a barn, which has been decorated for the occasion. The interior is very bright. Warm sunlight penetrates from wide but invisible openings to the upper left. We can determine the source of the rays of light from the figure of the man pouring the wine, half of whose face and whose arm are in shadow. Observe as well the shadows on the folds of his smock, or the bagpipe player's pants, or the feet of the server with the red jacket. The server's feet are dark and poorly defined because they are nearly covered by the table being used as a tray. The dominant colors of the painting are earth tones, ochres, greens, and browns, the proper colors for the environment, a barn with flooring and walls of hay and wood. The light accentuates these colors. It illuminates the space while conferring a warm glow. In this homogeneous range of colors, the regularly spaced spots of red and white in the clothes stand out, as does the blue of the server's jacket in the center of the painting.